Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to start the painstaking process of replacing the top on the Trans Am. So in past videos I've talked about how I vinyl wrapped it, looks terrible, it's still bubbling, and then I did get a top. I actually got one from a Salvage Yard off of a older one, so pre-98, 95 or 94 to 98, or no, sorry, 93 to 98. 99, some of the tops were okay. I just chose to stay away from those because you really don't know which one's good and which one's bad. So our very first step here is we're going to take the T-tops out. I'm going to go ahead and put those in the hatch just out of the way, and we're going to get started. Alright, so once we get the T-tops out, our next step is there are 4 Phillips head bolts or screws in the top here in the center bar. We need to take those out. Sorry it's so dirty, I didn't realize this thing was this nasty up here. So take those 4 out and get that out of the way. Alright, so once we got this off, this is 2-sided tape down with the screws that go in it. So be very careful, get underneath it with, I'm just using a scraper. And the reason you want to get underneath it and not tear anything up, I used a plastic scraper on this obviously because this is a painted surface, but you don't want to bend that bar that's in the center, because if you bend it, your T-tops won't seal correctly. That's of course that's important, but make sure that you're really careful not to put a ton of pressure on it. Just gradually pry underneath. I'm going to replace this 2-sided tape when I put the new top on. So we got that out of the way. The next step is we're going to take these little corner pieces off. Now they're just 2-sided taped on, and the tool that I'm actually using, I bought, it is a stiff putty knife. Now I didn't use that on the top, I used the plastic one, but this stiff putty knife is going to give us the ability to get in behind. You actually come from this side and knock those off. Now if you're going to reuse these, be really careful when you're taking these off not to break them, but I actually got new ones, so we'll replace those as well. Alright, so once we got those pieces off, the next step is we're going to start to pry behind the actual top itself. Now be careful not to get into the top of the fender. We're going to go this way, trying to stay away from that. Now we can completely destroy this, so that makes it way easier when you're taking this one off. So I'm not going to move the trim or the rubber out of the way for right now. I may end up having to take that off. But what I am going to do is I bought a bunch of plastic to put down in the interior and to kind of cover the car so I don't get junk all over the car. Spent a ton of time paint correcting this car, so I really don't want to do it again. So that's the next step. Alright, so one of the best spots I found to pry was on this back side and this lip to get it started. And then as you can see, I wrapped way more plastic on it. So I'm going to keep the door shut for now and gradually just start working my way across with this scraper. Alright, so here's what we have left once the top's off. As you can see, I completely destroyed it. But now I'm going to use the vacuum up all this extra stuff. We still got to work on this glue, get it a little flatter, try to get as much of it off as possible, and I'll show you that in the next step. But go ahead and take the time now to vacuum out all the extra dust just to get it out of the way. and then we'll move on to starting to get this glue off. All right, so we got it all cleaned up. I was going to use a wire wheel to clean off the old glue, but after talking to my window guy and my body shop guy, he said urethane actually sticks a little better to urethane. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a razor blade and just scrape this as close as possible, but you don't have to worry about getting this down to bare metal. So let's just go ahead and use a razor blade all the way around, scrape this off, and then we'll be ready to put the new top on. All right, here's the last step with the glue all cleaned up. As flat as you can possibly get it. Also went ahead and took off the center, cleaned all these channels out. So the new top is ready to go on, and we'll get started on that now. All right, so at this point, I'm applying the primer to the top, and then I'm applying it to the actual top that we're putting on. So the top of the vehicle and then the top fiberglass piece. After we get the primer and it's set for 10 minutes, then you can put your urethane on. Now the urethane needs to be at least a 1/2 inch thick, and I'll post a link to the GM Tech Bulletin down below, as well as all the product that I use. Now, once we get the top on there, you don't have a ton of time to move it around and get it where you need it before the urethane starts to set up. So make sure that you're ready to move it and get it where it needs to be. I put the T-tops in just to make sure that the placement was right. So after that, I'm going to tape it down just to make sure that it doesn't try to pull up overnight. It needs to set for at least 24 hours. All right, so the last thing I have to do is put these little corner pieces in. So these corner pieces of trim. So I actually bought some new ones. These are from Hawks, and I'll list the description, or I'll list the link down below where you can get them. These are the old ones, and I did go ahead and clean the glue off of those just because I had no idea what the fitment would be like on these. These come with the two-sided tape already on them. Obviously, you're going to have to put two-sided tape on your old ones if you reuse those. If you're careful taking these off, you can reuse them. Mine, I tried to buff on. They're really hard to hold while you buff on them. So I decided to try these just to see how they fit. And so far, the fitment, I just set them up there without sticking them, and it looks pretty good. The hook on the inside is not quite as deep, but other than that, you know, I really don't have any complaints, and we'll see how they hold up. I'm going to keep these just in case, but let's get these put on. Alright, so before I pull that off and stick them on, I actually marked where the bottom needs to set because they do have some movement up and down, and once you get them set, they don't like to move around. So also bought some Adhesion Promoter. So I'm going to use this to clean this area off so I get a nice good contact point, and we're going to stick that on there. Alright, so here it is all finished. Got the trim pieces on, top's glued down, everything's been, he came back out and buffed the top. It's a little hard for him to hold while it wasn't hooked to the car, so he wanted to buff that out, and I didn't show that because I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what he did. It probably looks actually better than the paint because it has way less orange peel. GM likes to put orange peel in their cars, where it's just their method of painting. It's just not super great. But as you can see, no bubbles. And I didn't really care for the black top. You know, the vinyl wrap looked okay for a while, but it just, I like the red top. Now I can tint the windows, and that'll kind of be the next step in this project. I've got several things coming on this car, but I will post down below all the products that I used. So from the urethane to the primer to the trim pieces, everything that I used on this project, including the top that I bought from the Salvage Yard, I will post in the descriptions down below the total cost to do this project. So guys, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I know it's been a long time for those people that have been asking about it, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that. You can also check me on Instagram at TWA Motorsports. Thanks for watching.